Hello, astrology lovers. Welcome back to another episode of Simple Astrology. My name is Tara All. I am an astrology lover just like you, and I am happy to meet you here in whatever space or time it is when you're tuning in. The focus for today is going to be Taurus, and with Taurus, we enter the second sign of the zodiac. And so just briefly, let's go back to the first sign, Aries, because Aries initiates the entire wheel. And essentially, in the human biological development, Aries would be when we're born. So think about it in this context. Aries, the first sign, a fire sign, a cardinal sign, initiates something new, initiates an entirely new evolutionary experience. And of course, when you're born, you initiate an entirely new lifetime, at least while you're breathing in it. I guess technically it could be initiated when you end up in the womb, but let's go from the moment you come out and you're breathing on your own. And so we talked a lot about Aries in the last Simple Astrology video, and about it being in many ways about separating something that needs to be open so you can move through in a new direction, which very much we can think about a woman's body opening to allow a baby to come out. But that same idea of creating openings throughout life is a big deal for Aries. You need to go your own way. Well, that way might be stuck. You might have to slice through on some level. You might have to push through on some level. You might have to be like the ram and charge through on some level. So that kicks the whole wheel off. And there's a lot more to Aries, certainly more than I could ever put into a little video. But if you're interested in Aries, you can check that one out on my channel. So that brings us to step 2. We've initiated ourselves. We are a separate being in life. We are a force of energy on this planet. So then we come to Taurus. Taurus, and this is true with the entire wheel, if you're new to astrology, it begins with a cardinal sign that initiates something, moves to a fixed sign that finds value, meaning, and purpose in whatever was initiated, moves to a mutable sign that gets relative perspective and learns about what has been created and stabilized to be able to transition to the next new initiation. And so they all go in a triad that way: cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable, all the way around the wheel. So Aries was our very first cardinal sign of initiation. Now Taurus is our first fixed sign. Fixed sign meaning to find value, meaning, and purpose. So in the case of Taurus, what is that domain of consciousness, that part of ourselves that is trying to find value, meaning, and purpose? What is it trying to find value, meaning, and purpose in? Well, ultimately, the thing that happened before, which is Aries, which is the self, the initiation of oneself. And so much of Taurus is then trying to find value, meaning, and purpose in me, in what I can do, in my own resources, right? So Taurus, we all, most of us know, even if we're not super astrology savvy, that Taurus has very much to do with resources. We think about Taurus having to do with money. And of course that's true, because Taurus is trying to anchor and root and stabilize the experience of self. And what does it take to be a stable self? You need a home, you need food, you need money to pay your bills. I mean, this changes from century and generation to generation, but on some level, there's some sense of need. We need something to survive, and survive is a really good Taurus word. I think sometimes in the more olden days that Aries would be the pioneer that would go out and find the homestead, right? Or find the farm, find the ranch, whatever the land would be, right? Aries would secure it, would find it, go out and get it. But then Taurus is actually the one that has to build the house, to build the barn, to build the structures, to cultivate the land for the farming. You know, it's the part that actually makes it fruitful, makes it be able to sustain. So this idea of cultivating is a very Taurus thing as well, and a very Venusian thing. And Venus, of course, rules the sign Taurus, rules the interior. Venus is the interior ruler. So we can look at these planets, the planets that rule two signs. So being Venus ruling Taurus and Libra, we can look at that Venusian expression through Taurus as being a more interior, internal part of Venus, and the Libra part being a more externalized part of Venus. So a real quick way to think about that is Venus has to do with relationships, right? But in Taurus, it's very much the relationship we have with ourselves. Our self-love, for example, whereas Libra is very much the love we have for and with others. Okay, that being said, back to the idea of cultivation. So Taurus very much about cultivating the land, right? Cultivating the space, cultivating yourself. You know, cultivation is, you essentially in farming, when you're cultivating, you prepare the space to grow. And so in Taurus, that's what we're doing for ourselves. We're cultivating our own environment, our own selves, our best resource is ourselves, right? We all have a self, and that self is the main resource we have in this lifetime. So with Taurus, the intention is to cultivate ourselves, to develop the self-worth, the self-value, the stability, the self-sufficiency, so that we can sustain and survive. And not just in a sense of like, okay, so I can live to see another day, but so that we can truly live to do the things that are meaningful to us. It's interesting with Taurus, so much of that energy with Taurus is what helps us know what to choose, what really has value, what really has meaning. See, Stephen Forrest talks about Capricorn, needing to climb the mountain to do that great work. But it's easy for Capricorn to climb the wrong mountain, but just because it thinks society tells it to do so. Maybe its parents said to do so. It just felt like, based on the cultural conditions, that's what it's supposed to do. And both Capricorn and Taurus are earth signs, but he talks about how Taurus is sort of the internal barometer that helps you know what mountain to go for. It helps you know what has value. For me, Taurus is so much the part of ourselves that we identify what's worth working towards, what's worth putting our energy into. So see, in astrology, just like everything else in life, there are so many labels and pigeonholing that happens. And it can be useful to use extreme examples to understand something, but then you have to remember that no human being is an extreme example. Nobody's 100% Taurus, and nobody certainly is 100% shadow Taurus, right? So if we can just sort of break that mold a little bit, we give ourselves a lot more room, not just in astrology, but in life and as human beings. So Taurus sometimes can get labeled as being lazy, right? Overly self-indulgent. Well, I look at it more this way. Sure, maybe, Taurus is a sensual sign. I mean, it's an earth sign, and it's a sign of embodiment. After Aries, just the raw life force energy, Taurus literally like grounds and centers, embodies you in your human meat. I mean, you like in Taurus, if Taurus is done well, you settle deep into your skin, you embody your humanity. And so there's a need to explore that sensuality. And there's more reasons than that, which I'll talk about in a bit here. But I want to get back to this idea of potentially being lazy. When I look at it as this way, Taurus will work like nobody else towards a goal, tirelessly towards a goal, with literal determination when it decides that goal is worth something to itself. That's the thing here. With Taurus, it doesn't just do something to do something. It has to really value it, right? It has to believe that it's worth the effort. and then just try to stop it, right? You try to stop. If you ever experienced a strong Taurus person, and if they really believe in something or attached to something, good luck trying to get them to budge. It's like all of a sudden in front of you, a ginormous boulder has transformed from that person you are talking with or spending time with or whatever, and it's immovable, truly immovable. And that's the thing with fixed energy in general, very much that way. But especially when you take fixed energy with an earth sign, you get this deep sense of gravity, right? Holds things down. And with Taurus, what anchors them is my sense that it means something to me. I want it and I need it. So for many of us on this planet, we have certain things that we are really big in as far as saying like, I want that, I need that. And that's part of the Taurian impulse to go after it. Taurus, everything below the horizon, the signs Aries to Virgo, so the first 6 signs, are all subjective awareness, meaning they all look at life from their more personal perspective. Their purpose of evolutionary development is to develop themselves, and to develop themselves from their own perspective. So this doesn't mean that other people aren't involved in their lives. They certainly are. We know that they are. But the lens through which they see things is very personal. And with Taurus in particular, and ultimately it wants to take care of itself. There is a deep need or desire to be self-sufficient, to be self-sustaining. And so Taurus oftentimes will not want to rely on others, will not want to merge its resources, will maybe not times even want to share its resources because it's very focused on what I need to do for me. Yeah. With all the signs, I always talk about the polarity point because nothing exists without its polar opposite. And in fact, the opposites really are one spectrum of energy. And for me, that's really helped me to see life and astrology in a more holistic way. So Taurus and Scorpio don't exist without each other. They're one field of energy. It's just that depending on our nature and our wiring, which astrology is a great chart to look at that wiring, to see it in a certain energetic language of symbols that kind of reveals where our affinities are, where our obstacles are, where our opportunities for growth are. So if in the Taurus-Scorpio field of energy, you're more polarized to the Taurus side, the tendency is going to be more to focus on me and mine and taking care of myself. Also on the Taurus side, there's a level of simplicity, right? So if you're born with, here's the thing, I didn't talk about this yet, but it's such an important part of Taurus. If you have, well, I'll say this, everyone has Taurus in their chart. So wherever Taurus is, whatever planets are in Taurus, whatever house Taurus is on the cusp or the doorway to get into that house, and strong Venus as well, where Venus is placed in the chart, you need to calm down, right? Taurus is a sign of simplicity, of calm, of beauty, of pleasure, of taking it easy. Super strong Taurus signatures point to a previous lifetime or previous lifetimes that were intense, right? And that's the Scorpio polarity point, intensity. That's what I sometimes call the trauma and drama of life, the complication, right? Everything feels like life and death. Everything feels like a huge emotional ordeal, right? Taurus is the place where you just chill out. You know, It's where you figure out how to relax, how to come back to a state of calm, centered, grounded self. So, you can even just take a peek in your chart and see whatever house has Taurus on the cusp. That area of life, I sometimes call the houses classrooms of life. That area of life is where you need to learn to approach it with calmer intentions, right? That area of life, you need to be stable. You need to be self-sufficient. You need to perhaps slow down, really slow down. Taurus doesn't move too fast. Taurus can move stable, determined, but it's not a racehorse, right? Aries was out the gate, right? Aries was out the gate racing, moving fast. Taurus has to slow it down. Another way you can think of this energy, if it helps you, is that Aries is a blowtorch of energy. In other words, it's straight moving energy, straight forward, penetrating into the unknown, penetrating into space forever in a straight line. Taurus takes that energy and turns it into a circular motion so it can harness the energy and anchor the energy and do something with the energy. Because raw energy shooting forward on its own forever, you can't do anything with it. It's like energy that's not anchored, that's not stabilized, that's not grounded. It's not useful in the sense of our practical lives. And Taurus is a super practical sign. It wants to make good use of resources. And so in that respect, just thinking about those two energies, Aries to Taurus, you already can really understand such a big shift of motivation between people that have strong Aries, strong Taurus in their charts, in their selves, right? The focus of what they need to do is different. Aries, I just need to keep on moving, shoot the energy forward, and penetrate into new spaces. I need to see what I can find out. So therefore, Taurus is upsetting energy to Aries because it stops it. And it's meant to stop it. It's meant to stop it and say, whoa, buddy, you're moving too fast. Like, we won't have any food to eat tonight, or, we won't be able to pay our bills, or we won't have a comfortable bed to sleep in if we don't slow this down for a bit. And I'm making this very, mundane right there, but you can extrapolate that to any situation. It's also true when you want to complete a project, right? You want to do something super amazing. You get this super idea, you initiate it. Woo! You're right out the gate. So exciting, right? But one, you might not be able to sustain that pace, right? So Taurus helps you pace yourself. Taurus helps you figure out what steps need to happen to start solidifying all your intentions into something that actually materializes. Taurus is very much a builder, similar into the way, all the earth signs, you can see them as a builder, but I feel Capricorn and Taurus more so than Virgo being the builders on different levels, right? Let's think about this way. Taurus, in the subjective realm of awareness, is very much building the foundation for myself, building what I need and want, what makes me comfortable in my personal life. Capricorn very much is building for more than just itself. Ultimately, Capricorn is building for society. It's building structures that hold and sustain and ultimately give us all room to grow from. But in the Taurus perspective, we need to give ourselves a solid home. We need to give ourselves a solid foundation, right, of where we are. So also with Taurus energy, it's so important to be, I talked about the word embodiment, but to be grounded in yourself, right? To get comfortable in your own skin. Also then too, Taurus rules all of the senses. And so this idea of using, scent, using touch, using taste, all the senses, hearing, seeing, all of them, right? That's so much of a Taurian gift. So Taurus, it's just so common. You can look at supermodels, musicians, and they very oftentimes have strong Taurus, strong Venus in their chart because there is a sensual aesthetic appeal, right? Taurus, truly, oftentimes Taurus people, they're just naturally beautiful. There's a natural beauty to Taurus. In the Tarot, the Empress is Venus's card, and to me, it's very much that a Taurian embodiment of Venus. In the Empress card, she's almost always pregnant, showing her ability, her fertility, her ability to give birth to life, to grow life, back to the idea of cultivating the environment, right? That life can grow. So this doesn't have to be physical babies that we give birth to with Taurus, but this idea of cultivating the space, giving ourselves what we need, gathering the resources, creating the resources, tapping into the resources, creating the environment that makes life grow the best for us. And that's different for everyone. My teacher, Laura Nalbandian, used to always say that whatever sign is on the second house and the ruler of the second house, and kind of all things to do with the second house, that energy is what you can spread around your entire life like manure to make things grow, right? So that second house is Taurus's house. You could think of that energy that way. It's literally what helps you and life within you and around you grow. So if we all did a little bit more of that and figured out the right recipe to kind of feed everything, then what would rise from it truly is more fuller, healthier, all those things. So not to move away too quickly from the idea of calm, because here's the thing with Taurus and with all of us. We can't live life with our nervous systems jammed on, right? I talked about that in the Aries video. There's a tendency with Aries for the sympathetic nervous system to be jammed on, the fight, flight, or freeze response to life. Taurus really is where we need to kick on the parasympathetic nervous system. We need to relax. And in that relaxation is oftentimes when we get the awareness of the next best thing to do, or of the right solution to whatever problem we're having, or to realizing what really has value, so we make sure that the effort that we're putting into life aligns with our true nature, right? There is an animalistic instinct in Taurus that just knows the right direction to go. It knows what feels good and right for you. That instinctual response, wherever Taurus is in your chart, you want to trust it. You want to trust your own ability to sniff out, to hear out, to feel out what it is that's good for you. And once you know what that is, and you have like a heart gut conviction of this is what is good for me, this is really what I value, this is what has meaning to me, then you apply all that Taurus determination towards that goal. And you can move mountains with that energy, truly. It's funny, we think about Taurus being the bull, but think about the strength of a bull. Think about what a bull can do. It's like one of the most virile creatures that, we can imagine. And that's Taurus too. There's a natural sexuality to Taurus. If you have Taurus in your chart, same with Scorpio polarity point, they're both very sexual signs, just that Scorpio is more emotionally attached to the sexual experience, or more emotionally motivated in the sexual experience. Taurus more physically motivated. Still still both signs, and Taurus in particular, it is about procreation. So sometimes we can think about that same instinctual part of Taurus that knows the right mountain to climb. There's the same energy in Taurus that kind of knows what are the best genes. In other words, if you want to make a baby, for example, the Taurus part in you is what can kind of tune into what person will have the best genes to make the best baby. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person will be most spiritually, emotionally available for you. I'm saying Taurus is good at survival of the fittest. It knows how to do that. That's its natural energy. So one of the pitfalls of Taurus can be hunkering down too much. Taurus, it wants to stay stable. It wants to stay secure. It can be linked sometimes with hoarding, because there can be a fear with Taurus, especially in difficult signatures in the chart, of not having enough, perhaps even of like physical starvation, not having enough money, not being able to make it, right? Literally not surviving. And so oftentimes that's not conscious in us. And so then what we do, for example, is we pack the pantry full of food. We stockpile certain things that we worry that we might run out. What if all of a sudden the store doesn't have toilet paper anymore? For example, here in the US, when we had that whole weird response to COVID with the toilet paper, I mean, it was such a Taurian signature, right? Oh my God, I have to get more toilet paper. It's like it literally reduced things to a base level need, which in fact, it wouldn't be very fun if we didn't have toilet paper, but that's actually not life and death. But it felt like it for a lot of people, and people became frantic, and Taurus can have that energy to it when it feels like it can't get what it needs. So also it gets to become attached to things in particular. Taurus rules possessions. So, and another thing with possessions is that oftentimes, with Taurus being so much about self-worth, self-love, and proving my worth, proving that I am valuable, proving that I can be self-sufficient, proving that I can make something of myself. Oftentimes the money and the things we have are what we use to prove that we are valuable and worthy. Look how worthy I am. I have these wonderful things. I can make a lot of money. I have proven that means I am, I don't know what word to put here. I'm worthy of your attention. I'm worthy of your love, right? In relationships, it can go that way. Look, I can provide for us. I am, I have this amount of money and this amount of beautiful things that I can share with you. We can have this fine wine with dinner. We can enjoy the fine art in my home. We can be by my house at the lake, right? You see how I have been able to earn and develop and create these things in this environment. And then we hope that people will see us as that same worthiness and that same beauty. And that's where it can get mixed up a little bit, right? So because Taurus ultimately is learning to recognize in all of us, the Taurus in all of us, we're learning to recognize our inherent self-worth and our inherent beauty that isn't dependent upon anything that we do. It's just what we are. But you can see how very easily that gets distorted. So that's as humans, that's so much what we do, right? We distort things. We feel like we need to prove something externally that really is more of an internal thing. And with Taurus, before I get back to too much hunkering down, one of the most beautiful things about Taurus is the ability to take the internal sense of beauty, the internal peace and groundedness, and to create an external environment that reflects that space. And therefore, all of us get to enjoy those beautiful situations, those beautiful places, those beautiful moments, the beautiful things in life. Taurus does not just let the material beauty of life slip by. It enjoys it. It delights in the gifts of the earth and of the human body. that's a gift. Because when we do that, we value them more, we bring more peace and enjoyment into our lives, we find more balance and equilibrium, which is very much a Venus thing, Taurus being a Venus-ruled sign. And in seeing the beauty around us, it truly reflects the beauty within as well. So at the same time as we internally project our beauty out, all the beauty we see is always seeing ourselves. It's always as within, as without. Taurus is a lovely example of creating that in the mundane. But here's the thing. Taurus creates these things that thinks are valuable, meaningful, purposeful, right? Value, meaning, purpose, fixed sign. And once it does that, decides what those things are, it can very much hunker down in them, right? I've got what I need. I've got myself taken care of. You know, everybody on the home front is, I'm looking out for them. We're solid. And then what can happen is stagnation, because from that place, not a lot of growth can happen. You might be very successful, right? Success does not equal growth. Maybe money growth, but success does not equal evolutionary growth. Does not expand your consciousness, does not grow you into more of who you can be. It's like you reach a certain place, you get comfortable, you just hang out there forever. You take the same route, you do the same things. You don't want to change because it's really comfortable here. It works for you. You know you're stable. And then here comes the polarity point, Scorpio. It's the risk. It's always the risk to Taurus. Taurus looks across the way. Taurus in its, I'm surviving, I'm doing well, I'm taking care of myself. Even if I'm not quote unquote doing well, I'm making it. I know how to make it here. I'm surviving. And then we look across the way to Scorpio, which is an invitation to totally let go of control in some way, to transform. And that looks like death. That literally looks like, if I cross the way to Scorpio, I will be facing annihilation. And that's because ultimately it is. From an ego perspective, it is annihilation. On some level, part of you will need to die and transform to move to something different. Scorpio invites us to come out of our own self-contained space and to merge with something greater. That can be a relationship and maybe sharing resources and doing a joint venture, which by the way, could be terrifying to a super strong Taurus person who's used to just being in charge of their own money and their own stuff and making sure it's safe and secure and just how they want it. You know, the Scorpio merging could also be a new belief system, could be literally a new way of approaching life that requires completely moving out of an old paradigm. The Scorpio, you have to confront your limits. Taurus is, in some respects, the limits. Taurus, right, you hit a certain place just by the nature of Taurus. You know, it's like I said, it took that Aries energy, turns it into a circle, makes it secure, makes it stable, and eventually that's always going to reach a limit. It can't go any further. And then the only way that that limit can be transcended is by, in some level, letting it be destroyed. And I don't mean this in like a super traumatic, like blow up the house. But I mean, in some level, you have to be willing to step out of the safety zone and to enter a new territory. You know, you can think about Scorpio, like in some respects, like volcano energy. What was solid eventually, in some way, has to melt, has to burn through, has to explode, has to shift and change so there's more room. Scorpio is the invitation, always the invitation to transformation. And that invitation oftentimes comes through other people who push us to our limits. It can be things that are just out of our control. You know, Scorpio rules all things that make us confront the area of life that we don't know what will happen. And that is not, you know, it's funny, I normally use the word volatile for Sagittarius, but I feel like I want to use it for Scorpio a little bit here because it's definitely like emotionally volatile. So where Taurus doesn't like drama, you know, Taurus likes it just to be calm, contained, you know, kind of keep the status quo. Scorpio is the emotional eruption that makes it impossible to stay calm. And sometimes, even though I was saying the calm is so important to us, which it is, sometimes there's no other way than periods of extreme tension to pull us out of that space. You know, Taurus can be so stuck that it takes a tremendous amount of tension to yank us out of it, which is why sometimes it's facing things like when you know, Scorpio is associated with death. It doesn't have to be that someone dies, but on some level, if Taurus is too stuck, it will face circumstances of death where something can't go on the way it has been. And oftentimes that's going to feel like it's out of one's own control. In other words, it's not, Taurus generally doesn't just say, oh, okay, I need to grow, so today I'm going to choose, you know, to present myself with this such and such situation. Now, on a soul level, we are doing that. But typically it comes through something else, someone else, another situation, something that comes from across the way, the polarity that now all of a sudden interacts with my little safety system and makes it impossible for me to continue living in that space. That space could be physical, that space could be mental, that space could be emotional, that space could be spiritual. Wherever I have become too bound and stuck, Scorpio presents something to get me to step into the flames and into something new. Okay. And of course, if in this polarity of energy or in this field of energy, you are the person who is on the Scorpio side and you thrive on the emotional intensity, you in some respects thrive on the next problem to solve, on the next emotional overwhelm, on the next, oh my gosh, you know, the trauma and drama of life that makes you feel so alive. Because truly the reason why Scorpio has a fascination with death is because on the edge of death, you never feel more alive. Scorpio wants to feel emotionally alive. It wants to feel. It wants to feel at such a depth. But if you have gone so far to that side that your life has become complete emotional chaos or complete emotional intensity, and you bringing to people around you that intensity, which is making it hard for anyone to calm down, let alone take the steps they really need to do to build the life that they're here to build, then the medicine is Taurus. In the same respect that Scorpio liberates Taurus from its stuckness, Taurus calms Scorpio down, grounds it, simplifies, so there can be a period of emotional, especially emotional healing, where you can get your center back, where you can come back to yourself, where you can get away from everybody else's crazy for a little bit, and even your own crazy, and come to a space where you can come back to homeostasis, where you can figure out what really matters and kind of let go of all the overcomplication. Because here's the thing, Taurus can oversimplify, Scorpio can overcomplicate. There's somewhere in the middle. And there's a limit with Taurus to what you can do by yourself. And that's part of the thing with self-sufficiency is amazing. You need to be self-sufficient so that you are a whole self to offer to anybody else. But there's a limit to what you can do by yourself. This is an interdependent planet. So Scorpio is the invitation to work with others to do what you couldn't do by yourself, which gets emotionally messy, sometimes physically messy. You know, things don't always work out the way you want them to, but there's only so much you can do by yourself. And then at the same time, if you lose yourself totally in something else, then you're not fully present for life either. So it's the two of them together that really allow there to be stability within yourself and stability within your relationships, that allow you to grow when you need to, and then go back to grazing like animals do when they need to just calm down. You know how animals do that, right? So say like the lion comes through, you know, to pick its prey, and all the animals run and they get so worked up, and then right when it's over, they go back to grazing. That's part of the Taurus thing, go back to grazing. You know, there's a balance between both, and we have that balance within ourselves. So thank you for joining me for Taurus today. It was some medicine that I was needing, and I always share what I need to learn and what I'm learning. So thank you for being here with me. And if you want to reach out with any suggestions or ideas, also I mentioned in my last video that I will be starting a free Zoom astrology study group. I was going to call it a class, but I think it's more of a study group. I am starting that in the near future. So reach out to me. You can reach me through my email, through my website at taraall.com. Let me know if you're interested, and I'll reach out with you and we will get something going. I think I want to start with Chiron. So if that speaks to you, let's get in there and do some personal and group sharing around Chiron. I feel like this is a good time for us to work with that energy. So again, thank you again for being here with me, fellow astrology lovers. Thank you for sharing this combination of art and science that's made such a difference in my life and in so many of our lives. So keep on sharing it and doing it, and I look forward to next time. Okay, take care.